to week 7, I believe. And I'm hoping you guys are doing all well. I'm going to say that I had a decent week this past week. And I'm hoping you guys are staying sane and you're staying healthy during this time. We are actually doing more problems and we're learning more about parallel lines cut by a transversal. Specifically the angles of those two. I want to reference to last week's video about this, definitely as a way to refresh your memory a little bit, because we have to deal with two types of scenarios with these angles. From last week's video, you know that looking at these angles, you can either tell if the two angles are congruent or if they're supplementary. And that's important to understand that. Because we're now going to be looking at solving what these angles actually are, and we have to create equations to find this out. Going back on it, we have two types of equations. We have to figure out how to set these up. If you're giving two angles, we need to set up an equation for it. There are two possible equations. You have the scenario of when they're complementary. Not complementary, sorry. When they're congruent, I really hope I didn't say complementary. I'm very sorry. But when they're congruent, and then when they're supplementary. When you found those out, you can actually set up the equation to solve for the variable. For the first case, when you find out the angles are supplementary, well, you put the one angle and then add that angle and set that equal to 180. Because since they're supplementary angles, those two angles added together equal 180. When they're congruent, you have the two angles equal each other. We are going to do two examples of those two coming right up of possible problems with parallel lines cut by a transversal. The first one is this one. Let's find out. So it's asking for this angle and this angle. All right. First thing we need to find out, are these angles congruent or supplementary? I'm going to focus on the 2x. Well, I know that this angle is congruent up here for 2x because of corresponding angles. So that means that this angle is supplementary. So now I know how to set up my equation to find out what x is. Now, we set up the equation since these angles are supplementary. Therefore, we set up the problem or equation as 3x plus 20 plus 2x, which is the other angle. So the two angles added together is equal to 180. Then we can solve this. I can get rid of this parentheses because we just have a 1 over here technically. So just add that. So we have 3x. So we have 3x plus 20 plus 2x is equal to 180. I can combine like terms, which is the x's, which is 5x. I can also subtract the 20 from both sides to get the terms on each side. So in the end, we have 5x is equal to 160. So to get x, we need x by itself because we need to solve for that. So we get x by itself. So 160. So 160 divided by 5 is 32. So now we know what x equals. We need to find the specific angles. So 2 times 32, because it's 2x, is equal to that. And then the other angle is 3 times 32 plus 20 is equal to So 2 times 32 is 64. And on the other one, 3 times 32 plus 20 equals 116. Now, a way to check this out, if this is correct, is you add these together, and they should equal 180. You could also technically you can just find one of these and then subtract this number by 180. But since we need to make sure x works for both sides, it's better to do both of them. So now we have another problem, which is 12x plus 3 and 11x plus 9 are two angles. I know that these angles look familiar. These are corresponding angles, so these angles are congruent. So we set them equal to each other. With that note, I get terms on one side, so I'm going to subtract this 3 from both sides and subtract the 11x from both sides. And that gives me a nice as x equals 6. All right. Now we can check if this is right. So we do 12 times 6 plus 3. And I'm also going to be nice and do the other one, 11 times 6 plus 9. And they both equal 75. Because 11 times 6 is 66 plus 9 is 75. 12 times 6 is 72 plus 3 is 75. So those are the types of problems to do it. You have some more problems to do, a little bit more challenging than these two problems, but you guys should be able to persevere through them, and hopefully you have a fantastic week.